And I think the stakes are getting high and getting real in that we are reaching this point where people are starting to get things into production, and the results maybe aren't great. So there's a Business Insider article talking, and they didn't name them, I think for obvious reasons, but a CIO of, quote, a very large pharma company signed up with Microsoft for their Copilot product. So this is the productivity based
Mhm.
Copilots, so within the Office suite, at $30 per person extra, which represented, according to this article, approximately double what they were paying. They deployed it for 500 employees, which isn't a large number. So I don't know if this was a test or maybe this was one of these proof of concepts.
Mhm.
But basically, this was, put it on a measure of roughly $180,000 in additional cost per year. Again, for a large company, that's not a lot of money. And the CIO canceled this contract because it could not justify or prove anything remotely close to an ROI on this. And I think that it's indicative. And we've heard versions of this and we've been talking about it. I know certainly off the record, I've heard a number of CIOs express dismay and concern over the price and how they can possibly justify a productivity uplift or demonstrate a productivity uplift enough to justify that cost. And so I think this stuff is starting to get real. And on a related note around it, the Wall Street Journal was reporting that Microsoft in their annual report has now added OpenAI to their list of competitors, which we've also talked about, where, so on the one hand, I feel like, I think all of them are sort of getting pinched. Again, we've been talking about this for a while. On the one hand, you got this incredibly competitive landscape. On the other hand, you have the customers who are supposed to be funding all these, paying for all these investments, the repayment of it, and they're all struggling to find a return. And so it's could be a very interesting sort of perfect storm moment.
Yeah, that ROI of copilots is interesting because we talk about how it should be easy to calculate how much you get back. So if it costs $30 a month and you have an employee who's making $60 an hour, the easy math to do is to say, well, 30 divided by 60, that's half. So if you get a half hour of productivity, then it pays for itself. But that's not actually true for a variety of reasons. First of all, there's just the overhead associated with a person, the plant, the office, the everything else associated with payroll. But the more important thing is that most companies actually think about the revenue per employee that they're making because you're trying to be profitable. So honestly, if you're paying somebody $60 an hour, you should be making $70 an hour off of them, $80 an hour, $100 an hour, whatever it takes to pay for that employee plus the margin that the company makes. And that's the actual productivity that you're looking for. So if you're somebody's making $60 an hour, you might have to find, call it 120 or 150 or $200 of actual value to put into place. So the first thing is if you're looking for a half hour productivity and you measure it, but people's lives don't seem to be more productive, part of the reason is they're not actually getting the amount of value it takes to get that ROI back. But I think the more important part is people are doing a lousy job of being able to document value in general. So whether it's a half hour or 2 hours or 5 hours, people aren't able to actually figure out how many hours they are saving from the Copilot, or they don't believe the numbers that they're seeing. And it makes it hard to renew when you don't know or don't trust that ROI at the end of the day. So there's these real value issues that we have right now with AI.
Well, and we've talked about this. The whole productivity based ROI that most technology in the enterprise is based on has always been a red herring because you don't actually realize that productivity savings unless you're going to actually reduce headcount and lay people off, which most cases doesn't happen. So the only way you can actually realize it, to your point, is that increase in productivity translates into increased revenue, right? That I'm actually therefore driving, and that becomes much harder to measure. And absent that measurement, all it looks like is going back to this pharma company, all it looks like is I've increased my cost by $180,000, and what did I get for it? And it's very, very difficult to connect those dots, particularly when the productivity gains are coming in. I'm producing my PowerPoints faster, or I'm producing
Mhm.
my Word documents faster, or whatever. And that's really hard. And that's why I'm becoming more and more convinced that those are going to become, and Microsoft is going to hate to hear this, but I believe that these are going to become baked in components they're not going to be able to charge for. They're going to get just baked into the normal cost of an Office subscription. And the things that people are going to pay for are going to be much more targeted and specific to a value creation model in some way, because it's the only way you can justify that sort of a large expense. So I think it's these are some interesting times as this is all shaking out. And